Hello all and welcome to our presentation on bullying, student learning and the foundational issues presented by Jeffrey, Natasha, Danielle and Anne-Marie. Every third week in November, the UK celebrates its annual Anti-Bullying Week. According to one source, the aim of this week is to raise awareness of the bullying of children and young people in school and elsewhere, and to highlight ways of preventing and responding to it. In the Caribbean, a health and family life education syllabus has been implemented, one of the goals of which is to prevent bullying and improve relationships among students. In Trinidad in 2017, the then president of Twitter, Lindsay Dudai, admitted that bullying in schools was on the rise. In 2018, the U.S. Embassy in TNT hosted an anti-bullying event. In 2019, 13 schools in Tobago marched in an anti-bullying rally in support of the victims of bullying, part of a two-day event to raise awareness of violence in schools, including the bullying of students. Also in 2019, in the third week in November, a school in Aranjuez planned an anti-bullying week, culminating in activities planned for the Saturday which revolved around the theme of bullying. Many of us have been victims of bullying in one form or another, and as teachers, we see cases of bullying happening every day. This is why, when we were asked to speak about a topic affecting student learning, we decided to focus on this very relevant topic. We will attempt to view this topic through the lenses of sociology, psychology, and language, showing why this issue is important on a global, regional, and national scale. And lastly, HFLE, through which we will attempt to show how this issue of bullying can be dealt with. According to the Collins Dictionary, bullying can be defined as the repeated use of threats or violence in an attempt to harm or intimidate others. UNESCO, in their report Behind the Numbers, Ending School Violence and Bullying, states that bullying in schools comes in different forms: physical, psychological, sexual, and cyber.
Bullying is a complex social issue in which students play many different roles. It is a social phenomenon that is currently receiving increased attention from school officials and policymakers, with great emphasis placed on social and physiological impacts of this behavior on students. Students' roles. Students play different roles in bullying. They can bully, assist the bully, and in most instances, the bystanders play a significant role as they magnify the situation by cheering on and encouraging the bully. The impact of bullying. According to Reed, victimized children are likely to avoid school, resulting in absenteeism and lower intelligence and academic performance. Students who bully. Students who bully are usually hyperactive, impulsive, have a lower IQ, and lack empathy. They have no feelings of shame, guilt, or empathy with their victim's suffering in mind. Non-cognitive. According to Craig, bullying also has harmful effects in the health and emotional well-being of students, as well as detrimental effects in adolescents' attainment of cognitive and non-cognitive skills. The non-cognitive skill that is affected comprise of personal traits, attitudes and motivations, long-term goals in face of setbacks, self-discipline and willpower, and social skills which establish compatible and effective relations with others. Because non-cognitive skills are socially determined, students' bullying is likely to affect these skills and by doing so, students' academic achievement as well. Family variables. Unfortunately, studies have shown that students who have witnessed domestic violence, lack parental involvement, or have been verbally and physically abused at home are more likely to reciprocate or lash out on other students at school. Students who are bullied. Previous research have shown that children who are bullied at school suffer several maladaptive outcomes. The negative effects of bullying involve depression, anxiety, interpersonal violence or sexual violence, substance abuse, insecurity, and poor social functioning. Of pertinent importance to practitioners is that it also negatively impacts academic performance and self efficacy, which often result in poor attendance, lower grade point average, and test scores. But what happens in class? They are afraid to answer a question as they lack self esteem. They avoid socializing and lack friendships, becoming isolated. They are also always trying to avoid being noticed or heard and are more conscious of their classmates' reactions. They adapt trust issues and generally have lower social acceptance. In addition to the internalizing behaviors, they can also display externalizing problems such as impulsiveness and hyperactivity, easily distracted and distracted as they are trying to fit in, as they are unable to focus or cope with the work presented. If we are to combat this problem in schools, all stakeholders, parents, teachers, classmates, schoolmates, communities, and government must be involved for change to occur in all the lives of the bullies and the victims alike.
Bullying and psychology. Bullying and the brain. Brain research is revealing that bullying is more than just an unfortunate part of growing up. It can cause long-term changes to the brain that leads to cognitive and emotional deficits as serious as the harm done by child abuse. Effects of bullying on student learning. Bullying is a common experience for many children growing up. Children who experience persistent bullying may become depressed or fearful. They may even lose interest in going to school. There are many students who are being victimized as a result of bullying and are not living up to their academic potentials. They are not getting as much of their school experiences as they should. According to Eliot, there are many behaviors that affect bullied children academically. Children may be frightened of walking to and from school. They may be unwilling to go to school, make continuous excuses to avoid going, begin doing poorly in their schoolwork, inability to concentrate. They may become withdrawn, have panic attacks, and poor memory. Bullying infringes on the child's right to human dignity, privacy, freedom, and security. More studies are beginning to confirm the psychological effects of bullying, which is becoming a worrisome trend in schools. Bullying through a regional context. The 6780 study participants are described in Table 1. It shows the bullying statistics in countries such as Cayman Islands, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Trinidad and Tobago. It shows about 1 in 4 students being victimized by a bully in the past month. Bullying rates were similar for boys and girls. Rates of peer victimization tended to decrease somewhat with increasing age. Through an international context. Bullying in schools across the world is assuming a serious dimension. For example, in Australia, Professor Ken Rigby reported that 1 out of 6 students between the ages of 9 and 17 is affected by bullying at least once a week. In American schools, there are approximately 2.1 million bullies and 2.7 million victims.
Okay, so this is bullying and language. Now, when I got this topic, I was a bit at a loss as to how to pursue it. Why? Simply because this topic is not widely covered as other aspects of bullying. However, as I got deeper into conversation with my group and my guidance officer at the school in which I teach, I realized that the two are very much linked. So in these slides, I will attempt to show that link between bullying and language and how it's being dealt with from a language or maybe a linguistic point of view. Now, let me just say that I could recall as a child, children being bullied because of the way how they speak. I remember at primary school, there was a child who was bullied because he had a different accent. But it goes even beyond that. You know, some are bullied because of the way they speak. And when we talk about the way we speak, the way they spoke, we talk about communication or speech disorders. Studies have shown that children, especially, who had some measure of speech impediment, the likelihood of them being bullied or teased about it was great. Here we see expressive language disorders and specific language impairment, SLIs, increase children's risk for being bullied. And this was done in a study here by Lindsay, Dockrell, and Mackey, and also Savage. So we use the term types of communication / speech disorders. And what are we referring to when we do this? Here they are. Stuttering. Stuttering refers to a speech disorder that interrupts the flow of speech. Apraxia of speech or verbal apraxia refers specifically to the impairment of motor skills that affect an individual's ability to form the sounds of speech correctly. Dysarthria. This occurs when damage to the brain causes muscle weaknesses in a person's face, lips, tongue, and other muscles that are responsible for speech. So we have looked at the link between language and bullying, where we saw that some people are bullied because of the way that they speak. But what about the other way around? Can bullying actually cause some level of speech disorder or communication disorder? Well, studies have shown that some people who develop certain types of communication or speech disorders, they do so because they were bullied. Here we see that studies have shown how much bullying in itself can be the cause of some level of communication disorder, right? And in some cases, it can even exacerbate a pre-existing condition. In their study, Hughes, Schiller, and Kelly wrote, consequently, preschoolers who were teased or had negative peer responses to their stuttering expressed frustration, reduced talking, which is a communication disorder, withdrawal, and avoidance. Another way in which language and bullying are linked is something that we probably would have all experienced at some point in time. It's called verbal bullying. And what is verbal bullying? Well, it's the use of disturbing language to deliberately embarrass or demean someone. And when we speak about verbal bullying, I'm sure many of you would know that things like calling names, spreading rumors, threatening someone, making fun of the way people look, the way they dress, and many other things can constitute to verbal bullying. Language and bullying are also linked in terms of a solution, a way in dealing with it. And by this I mean that it has been suggested that bullying can be addressed via speech language therapy. And some of the ways this can be done are by listening to victims of bullying, encouraging them to talk about bullying, and encouraging them to report bullying. Thank you.
So now we turn our attention to bullying and health and family life education, commonly known as HFLE. When researching the link between bullying and HFLE, the organization UNESCO came up in direct relation to these topics. On investigating further, I found this statement on their website. School-related violence in all its forms, including bullying, is an infringement of children's and adolescents' rights to education and health and well-being. No country can achieve inclusive and equitable quality education for all if learners experience violence in schools. According to their website, UNESCO, or the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, seeks to build peace through international cooperation in education, the sciences, and culture. UNESCO believes that education alters lives and is therefore at the core of UNESCO's mission to develop peace, get rid of poverty, and propel sustainable development. According to their write-up on education, UNESCO believes that education is a human right for all throughout life, and that access must be matched by equality. In fact, this organization, out of the 15 United Nations agencies that exist, is the only United Nations agency with a directive to cover all aspects of education. According to their website, a strategic priority for UNESCO is ensuring all children and young people have access to safe, inclusive, health-promoting learning environments. One of the key outcomes for UNESCO's work in this area is eliminating school violence and bullying. One of the measures that UNESCO, together with CARICOM and UNICEF, put into place to achieve its goal in the Caribbean of eliminating school violence is the publishing of a regional HFLE guide for teachers, which includes resources to help educate students on different issues affecting them, including violence. They also publish documents to support the teaching of HFLE in primary and secondary schools. The guide states the following. The document is a comprehensive life skills-based program which focuses on the development of the whole person. It does this by enhancing the potential of young people to become productive and contributing citizens and adults, and promotes an understanding of the principles that underlie personal and social well-being. Regionally, multiple countries have adopted versions of the HFLE syllabus in a bid to educate their children on these issues, for example, Belize. In Trinidad, HFLE is used as a way to teach students to manage relationships, especially amongst themselves. There are 4 thematic areas for HFLE in schools, one of which is self and interpersonal relationships. The syllabus outlines certain standards for self and interpersonal relationships. These are to examine the nature of self, family, school, and community in order to build strong, healthy relationships, to acquire coping skills to prevent behaviors and lifestyles associated with crime, drugs, and violence, and to respect the rich differences which exist among Caribbean peoples as a valuable resource for sustainable development of the region within the framework of democratic and ethical values. It also outlines the expected student outcomes, which are problem solving, coping with emotions, and assertiveness skills, the explanations for which can be seen on the slides. In the HFLE curriculum, students are taught to, amongst other information, and this is pulled from the document itself, demonstrate compassion for others' feelings and circumstances, respect and appreciate the differences between self and others, respect the views of others, display an awareness of the impact of one's actions on the feelings of others, be courteous and polite in interactions with others, demonstrate responsibility when making choices with respect to relationships, value friendship, and demonstrate sensitivity towards socio-cultural and economic differences, all of which would go a long way in helping to prevent bullying or even to help students cope with it. The HFLE syllabus tries, through the teaching of self-worth and the worth of others, amongst other values, to eliminate and even prevent bullying in order to help create a healthy school environment and wholesome student experience, characteristics which are necessary for successful student learning.